everyone. I am Angela A. Samson and I am from the group 5 and I am the group representative and I will be the one who will be reporting about our topic biodiversity and health society. So, um next next screen. Okay, next slide. Done. Okay. So when we say biodiversity, biodiversity supports human and societal needs, including food and nutrition security, energy, development of medicine and pharmaceuticals, and fresh water, which together underpin good health. And it also supports economic opportunities and leisure activities that contribute to overall well-being. So mo na siyang gitawag na to, mo kuno na siya tong gitawag nga biodiversity. But then ang biodiversity and health society na siya ay some parts which I will be discussing. So we have the biodiversity and ecosystem, changes in biodiversity, um, the threats to biodiversity, consequences of biodiversity loss, and nutritional impact of biodiversity. And the last one is what is an environmental illness. So first is let us have the um, biodiversity and ecosystem. Next slide, please. So, biodiversity and ecosystem is defined as the vast variety of life forms in the entire Earth. It encompasses all kinds of life forms from the single-celled organism to the largest multi-celled organisms. Its definition is in the structural and functional perspective and not as individual daw. So next is we have the changes in biodiversity. Next slide, please. So in the changes in biodiversity, we have here the question, what is biodiversity? So it says here that the concept of biodiversity refers to the variety of life on three different levels. So ang biodiversity daw kay naa siya kanang it it has a biodiversity variety of it has a three variety different levels. First is we have the genetic diversity, species diversity, and the last one is the ecosystem diversity. So first is let us have the genetic diversity. Next slide, please. So, genetic diversity refers to the amount of genetic variability between individuals of a given species. Genetic variability may cause differences in behavior, appearance, or physiology that makes some individual of a species less susceptible to a disturbance. Therefore, high levels of genetic variability daw buffer species against environmental change by increasing the likelihood um, that at least some individuals will survive. Different populations of species must be protected to conserve genetic diversity. So that's what all the genetic diversity all about. So next is let us go to the next level, which is the species diversity. Next slide, please. So for the species diversity takes into account to the number of different species, for example, the species richness and the or equitability with which the different species are distributed. Next slide. For example, in two hypothetical communities, each with 100 individuals made up of two species, the A and the B, a community with 50 individuals of species A and 50 individuals of species B, is more diverse than a community with 99 individuals of species A and individual of species B. So that's what about the species diversity. And for the ecosystem diversity, next slide, please. Mm. Ecosystem diversity. It refers to the variety of different ecosystem. An ecosystem consists of communities of organisms interacting with each other and with the physical and chemical features of the environment. Next, let us have the threats to biodiversity. Next slide, please. So the threats to biodiversity on the planet, the core threat of biodiversity on the planet, and therefore a threat to human welfare, it is the combination of human population growth and resource exploitation. Please don't forget, the true threat, core threat to diversity on the planet, we have the combination of human population growth and resource exploitation. So the human population requires resources to survive and grow, and those resources are being removed unsustainably from the environment. The three greatest proximate threats to biodiversity are habitat loss, overharvesting, and introduction of exotic species. The first two of these are a direct result of human population growth and resource use. Okay, wait for a while. So, um, the the third result from increased mobility and trade, a fourth major cause of extinction, anthropogenic and climate change. Next slide, please. Anthropogenic climate change. Climate change has not yet had a large impact during this century. So next slide, please. Let us nutritional go to the nutritional impact. Sorry, the consequences of biodiversity loss. So biodiversity is frequently thought of as synonyms with species diversity in wildlands, and biodiversity loss is frequently thought of as a synonyms with the extinction of wild species. But biodiversity is much more than species diversity in wildlands, and biodiversity loss is much more than species extinction. Biodiversity is the variety of species used in both the production and consumption of goods and services. Next slide, please. Wait for a while. Let me add some. So, the example of consequences of biodiversity loss include the ornamental plants, birds, and animals that people use to enrich their lives. The variety, wait, okay, um, the variety of foods they use to enrich their diet, the mix of biofuels or biofibers used to support productive activities. It also includes the genetic diversity of cultivated crops, of crop pests, or wild crop relatives of weedy species. It also includes the excuse me, includes the range of biotech disease agents that affect human, animal, and plant health, and the species used to control disease, such as traditional medicinal plants and the plants used as the source of modern pharmaceuticals. So now let us go to the next part of the biodiversity and health society, which is the nutritional impact of biodiversity. So, biodiversity plays a crucial role in human nutrition through its influence on the world food production, as it ensures the sustainable productivity of soils and provides a genetic resource for all crops, livestock, and marine species harvested for food. Access to a sufficiency of a nutritious variety of food is a fundamental, what do you call this? Fundamental determinant of health. So it says that nutrition and biodiversity are linked at many levels. So we have the ecosystem with food production as ecosystem service, the species in the ecosystem, and the genetic diversity within species. So nutritional composition between foods and among variety, cultivars, and breeds of the same food can differ dramatically. So affecting micronutrient availability in the diet, and also help local diets with adequate average levels of nutrition intake necessities, maintenance of high biodiversity levels. So for the last part of our discussion, we have the Um, Next slide, please. So we have here the next page. So we have here the environment related illness. So first is we have here the question, what is an environmental illness? Okay, so an environmental illness, okay, wait for a while. So an environmental illness can occur when you are exposed to toxins or substances in the environment that make you sick. These health hazards may be found where you live, work, or play. So maybe you have headaches that only occur on a weekends, or maybe you began to feel sick and got a rash after moving into a newly built home. These symptoms can be caused by exposure to toxic chemicals, and it says that exposure to some types of chemicals can cause an environmental illness. The more of the chemical you're exposed to, the more likely you are to get ill. Examples include chemicals in cigarettes are known to cause lung cancers. Exposure to asbestos, an insulating material found in some older buildings, can cause tumors, lung cancers, and other diseases. So, on wood burning stoves and poorly vented gas ranges can produce a smoke or gases that can cause breathing problems. Unsafe drinking water from our rural well polluted with pesticides or other poisons from a nearby um, industrial plant could cause allergies, cancer, or other problems. And also, certain chemicals in the workplace may cause sterility in men or fertility problems in women. Lead poisoning can cause health problems, most commonly in children. It can also cause high blood pressure, brain damage, and stomach and kidney problems in others. So that's some of the um what do you call this? Some of the reason why some of us will get an environmental related illness. So that's all, everyone. I hope you've learned something. Thank you so much for listening. Have a great day ahead. Bless us all. God bless us all. Bye.